Hey, what's going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the tutorial series, guys. It's good to have you back here with me and getting ready to learn something new. I don't know if I have as much of a lesson per se planned for right now. As you can see, that things are a little bit different since the last time we spent some time on this map, right? And basically, I just added a dirt road, some grass, and some trees, all right? And then maybe like a dirt driveway, a gravel dirt driveway, or pathway around this cow barn here. And, you know, I just started to color in a few things. I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to do that. Alrighty. I guess in hindsight, I should have had you along for the ride when I started, putting some of this stuff down. I was just kind of bored. I went on a trip this weekend and had my laptop with me, and late at night, like I said, I work nights, so I have trouble sleeping sometimes. And basically I got bored and did this. All right, but I just want to kind of bring you up to speed on how I got to this point, okay? Like I said, maybe I should have had you along for the ride, but I did not. Shame on me. So I'm gonna explain to you quickly how I did that now. All right, now the roadway, you can see I have a dirt texture. I have this darker color brown and a lighter color. I took that from the French map. If you can remember our lesson on adding additional textures to your map, if you go back and rewatch that video, that's exactly what I did. I brought in the two different dirt textures. I brought in like dirt and a dirt dark, and that's how I got the textures. And the way that I laid that down was using the spline, the same exact way that I did the roadways here. And if you can't remember how we did that, you can go back and rewatch that video. Okay. And that spline, that was the same tool that we got from Farmer Boys Modding. All right. So I used that script. Like I said, I had several, but that's the exact same script that I used on this one here. All right. Now, as far as the trees, now there's many, many different ways to put down trees. I'm not going to get into them all now, but in this particular instance, I used a spline. All right. You could lay them by hand. You can get into using the mesh paint mode. You can do that. There's different scripts, or you can use like an info mask. You can do a bit mask basically that you can lay these things through an info layer. I can't figure out what the heck I want to say tonight. Anyhow, my point there was, before I started babbling and tripping over my words, was that there's lots of different ways to do this. Okay. And I just happened to pick spline as the way that I did this. All right. So I'm going to show you really quick how I did this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide my trees, because I don't want those to be in the way, okay? And all I did, and this is super easy, let me minimize these here really quick. All right, what I did is, let's go to Window or Scripts, I'm sorry, and these the updated spline script tools that we got from Farmer Boys, I'm gonna detach that so I can work with it easy. All right, now the first thing that I want to do, or you're going to want to do, is go to Spline Placement Transform. That's going to create a transform group for you. I meant click on that, like actually get it to do something. There we go. Oh, it did it twice. Just being a little slow tonight. Delete one of those. All right. And the second thing I want to do is I want to create a spline. Okay, and I'm going to lay that spline down right next to my roadway. All right, now if you expand the transform group here where it says spline placement, using your middle mouse button, you want to drag that spline into that transform group there. Okay, it's important. Now re-click your spline. Okay, now you guys hopefully remember how to lay down a spline, right? Using Control B to get yourself into interactive placement mode, and then using insert to put in additional vertexes, control vertexes, right? Now, and that's all I did, is I just basically ran along the length of this road. Now, I'm not paying any particular attention to being careful as far as making sure I'm hugging the contour of the ground and stuff like that, or making my control vertexes really close together. When the spline when the script executes, it's automatically going to put these objects down at ground level for you. So it's not going to be that big of a deal that you can just kind of willy-nilly just run through here really quickly and lay this spline down on each side of the road. Okay, see how I'm doing this really quick. I'm just not being careful at all. All right, now when I get to the end here, something to keep in mind is you can see if I hit insert once and put a control vertex there, When I move that around, how it's got that real nice gradual bend, okay? Let me hit it twice really fast. Now when I do it, see how sharp my bend is? And now I could just scoot over to the other side of the roadway. This way I don't have to use two different splines. So hit insert twice real quick, and then you can kind of go on a 90. I don't know, just figured I'd throw that in there. It's sort of a little trick, I guess. And like I said, I'm just kind of cruising, I don't know, staying within, a few meters of the roadway. Not being overly careful about anything, just kind of zipping through. If any of these trees end up in any place that I don't want them, not a big deal. I can fix it as we go. Alrighty. So now that I got that spline down, okay, I'm going to show you how to do the trees here. And then after the fact, I'll go back and I'll read a few things from you from the direction. So because if you're going to use this placement tool for things like fences and stuff like that, you're going to need to do things a little bit differently. All right, so up here with the tree templates I have in my trees. Now, these are all prefabs that I brought in from another map. Okay, now I had them in my utilities folder, if you remember that video where I showed you I had a utilities folder that had a bunch of saved prefabs and stuff, and that's where all these came from. Now, you don't have to place just one tree at a time. All right, you can pick a whole handful of trees, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to randomly just go through, and I'm going to select a bunch of them, and I'm going to hit Control-C for copy, and I'm going to go down here to that transform group that we just created, and I'm going to go to Objects to Place, highlight that, hit Control-V, and I'm going to put all those objects in there. Now, a lot of times for best results, you want to go through and you'll want to hit you want to zero these out. So if you hit Control or alternate R will reset your rotation, alternate G will reset your translate values. All right, so you can go through and do each one of these this way. Depending on the objects that you put down, sometimes you need to freeze transformations as far as like to rotate and to scale, but we don't really have to do any of that for this particular example as far as the trees. If we get into anything later down the road where that does make a difference, I'll definitely show you how to do that. But as far as these trees go right now, I know that these are going to be okay, so I'm just going to leave all that go just for the sake of speeding things up so I don't have to go through and reset all those values. All right. Now, a lot of times, if you have these things set like for a prefab that you're constantly using over and over, when you export them, it's not a bad idea to reset your translations and rotations to 0 before you even export them, or after the fact you can update them. But anyhow, okay, so I have all these trees inside that objects to place. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is highlight the spline placement because this is going to give me my options here. Now set object distance. That's the distance I want between my trees. All right. Now I'm going to select some the random option. So not going to be a set distance like, exactly every 15 meters, which is what I'm going to pick every 15 meters. Actually, let's pick 20. All right. Now use distance table. I'm not going to check because that's actually using a set distance, basically like first 1 meter, then 5 meters. So I'm not going to do that because that's too predictable. Basically, it's too uniform and we don't want to do that. Stay upright because I do want the trees to stay upright. Now, random scale, I am not going to pick because on trees, I found that it interferes with logging. All right. So in some instances, it makes it look really, really nice because the trees are all, trees are never the same size. They're never, one doesn't look identical to the one beside it, but randomness does help take care of some of that, but it interferes with logging. So I don't mess around with that. If you want trees of different sizes, just pick trees that are different sizes, stage 1, 2, and 3, they're all different sizes. So random scale, as far as tree goes, don't mess with it. Random Y rotation. Yes, we want to do that. We want to rotate it on its Y axis. Random order, as far as the way that it picks them out of the group. Yes, we want that. Random object distance, again, we want to. Random object distance seed, basically all that is a value that's changing. When it picks this random number, it's just a mathematical equation. And all we're doing is we're just throwing a different number that it uses in that equation. It's not really critical. We can keep that at 1 and be absolutely just fine, or change it to 10 or 100 and you're still going to be okay. All right. So you can kind of do what you want there, but 1 is just fine. Random object placement. Yes, we want to place them randomly. Now the placement distance, the random object placement distance is the way I understand it, I think, or at least from the old script, is how far away from this spline you're willing to go when you place that object. So we'll go up to 10 meters, right? So that doesn't really matter. And then fixed distance, of course, we don't want to do anything fixed because, that defeats the purpose. You want things to look a little bit random, a little bit chaotic. That's the way it works in nature. Nothing's ever completely uniform, fixed distance, completely symmetrical. It's just random and chaotic, and that's the way we like it. Alrighty. So once you have all that done, just go up to spline placement here, make sure that's highlighted, and then go over to your scripts here. And then we want to do execute the spline placement script. Alrighty. And then when we do that, we get a bunch of trees. Okay. So now I'm going to go through, I'm going to delete the spline just so I don't have to look at it and see how this looks. Really doesn't look too bad. Now, obviously you're going to get, some trees are going to be a little too close to the road and you can just back those off. And what I like about this is it took the choice out of it for you. It's human nature for us. Like when you do these by hand on your own, human nature is to make order out of chaos, right? Is to make things uniform and symmetrical and evenly spaced. And that's what I like about scripts is it takes that away. It takes that out of the equation, basically, right? So this way you're not worried about things looking too uniform. It just kind of plops them down. And, if you don't like it, you can change it, move things how you want. But for the most part, I tend to keep things wherever it puts them because it looks all right. So like I said, go through. If anything's too close to the road, then just move it the heck out of there. Not a big deal. All right. And that's how I got these trees down. Super duper easy. Nothing overly complicated about it. Like I said, you could use the mesh paint tool, or you could have placed them by hand if you wanted to do that. None of this was that critical, okay? And then once you have them down, what you could do is you could just go back to this, the transform group here where you have the placed objects. All right, and you can either rename this. Now I have mine, if you look, I have mine called Lot 1. So basically each time I set down a grouping of trees, I just put it in a different lot. Lot 1, Lot 2, Lot 3. And then this way, if I need to come through and edit anything, I know that it basically just helps me keep organized. I've had to do that in the past where I had to edit things and it was much easier for me to find, certain groupings of trees when I had them separated. So you can either take this whole thing, rename it, this whole transform group, and slide it up here and name it to whatever you want. That's what I did. Or you can just not copy, but take everything in here, maybe put it in a group and then copy that group over to somewhere. Like up here with your trees or what have you. And then when you're done, you can just take this whole spline objects folder if you want and delete it because it's no longer needed once you move your trees out of there. All right. So now mine, I already have, I already had in place. So I just deleted everything. Okay. So that's how I went about doing the trees. All right. Now, I also laid down some grass, and I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. If you cannot, you may want to go back to the very first video in this series and start from there. So I'm not going to explain to you how to lay down grass, but I will tell you, since it's on the home farm, it's on the player farm, I made sure it was harvest ready, and, I use Meadow Harvest Ready so they can come through and cut it if they want to cut it and make hay and all that fun stuff, right? Okay, so basically that is how I got to the point where we're at now. Like I said, I feel kind of bad that I wasn't kind of bringing you along for the ride and showing you how I was doing things so you kind of maybe, I don't know, maybe learn something new. Like maybe I do something a little bit differently than you do, and you can say, hey, that's pretty cool. I can be doing mine that way. All right, so I promise that, most things that I do from here on out, I'll try to include you guys in. So this way, you kind of have an idea about what's going on, and you can see the difference that this makes. I mean, it makes a hell of a difference just having some trees on this map, you know what I mean? And having some grass and stuff that things really start to come together here. They start to look a lot better, look a little more realistic. You get the idea of what I'm trying to say. All right. Now trees, I picked an awful lot of different trees here. I don't normally do that. I try to keep like all my spruce trees and spline trees. Yeah, that's real good. Pine trees. I try to keep those together, like my coniferous trees and non-coniferous, and you get the idea. So I don't normally have this big of a variety, but I don't know. In this case, plop them down doesn't look bad, so I'm going to keep it. Because you can see I didn't put a heck of a lot of thought into, where things were going. Like this cow barn, the house, and the satellite dish, they're all in the exact same positions that I plopped them down when I was making an example and taking you guys through this tutorial. All right, same thing with the road. I didn't really do anything to change that. Like I said, I like to do things which is kind of randomly. I don't know. To me, it works for me. If you feel like you know exactly where everything needs to go and your roads need to go a certain way and your buildings need to go in a certain place, then hey, more power to you. Feel free. All right. But I like to keep mine just random and just kind of go with the flow and work with it. And to me, it all works out in the end. I like seeing things come together. It's kind of like a surprise, like, hey, that actually doesn't look too bad. All right. All right. So now taking you back up to, I was going to show you an example here. All right. If you go back up the window, go to script editor. All right. Go up to the script from Farmer Boys, right? And then go up to, let me make this a little bit bigger so I can see what I'm doing. And highlight the one for spline placement. All right, here's the directions for that. If you need any type of directions. And basically, he's just telling you that the script or the spline can be called anything that you can name it anything you want as long as it has the word spline in the name, okay? What else does he have here? Make sure that you have ensure spline placement transform has been executed. Okay, so basically we went through that, basically creating the transform group, where we put all of our objects and stuff like that in there. It says objects will be placed at terrain height at their point of origin. So basically, what he's getting at there is a different version of the script. You can have the objects either follow the spline itself and stay at the height of the spline, or you can have it go down to terrain height. And in this particular script, everything goes at terrain height. And that's what he's telling you there. All right. So that the objects will be placed along the spline from the starting control vertex aligned to their Z axis. So ensure that your object is aligned to the Z axis. Now he gives you an example here that if you have a fence panel, that it needs to be set to the longest section. If it's not aligned to the Z axis, you're going to want to rotate it and then freeze transformation on the rotation until it is aligned along the Z axis. I know that was a mouthful and it's confusing, but in 1 second, I'm going to show you exactly what we mean by that. And for best results, he's telling you to freeze transformation for the scale and rotation. And then that all your translations are set to 0 on the objects, right? So we went through that. I was telling you to 0 everything out. And in some instances, you want to freeze transformation. And if, like I said, if we ever place anything where we need to do that, I'll be sure to show you. But it's really easy. If you pay attention to this next thing that I'm going to show you, you'll know how to freeze transformations. Alrighty. And then right below that is everything is basically spelled out for you as far as what object distance is, distance table. Okay, you get it. Okay, so as far as what he's trying to tell you about the fences and rotating them to their Z-axis and freezing transformation and all that stuff, let me see if I have a fence here. I don't think I do. I got some metal gates. Let's try one of these metal gates. All right, this will work for the purpose that I'm trying to. For demonstration purposes, this will work. All right, so I'm going to lay one of these gates down here. All right, now let's just pretend this is a fence. All right, don't be difficult. It's a fence. All right, so normally if we're going to lay down a fence, we want it to go end to end. Okay, so if I duplicate that, this is the way we would normally want it to look, right? From end to end to end along the Z-axis. Okay, now the problem that we have here is that my Z-axis is right here. It doesn't it's not going a long way with the fence because we want to lay it down end to end. But the way the script works is it runs along the Z-axis. So now if it was going to lay these fences down, right, it would lay them down like this, side by side by side by side by side. That wouldn't look very good. That's just not a very good look for a fence, right? So the way that you want to fix this is you want to rotate it on its y-axis. You want to rotate it 90 degrees or negative 90, depending on which way it needs to go. All right. And then go up to edit, go to freeze transformations and check the rotate selection. Okay. Make sure that's the only one checked and then hit apply. All right. See what happened there is that now this blue arrow, which is our Z-axis, is completely in line long way with the fence. So now when the script runs along the Z-axis, it's going to line these up end to end to end to end. Now with the fence, it's a little bit different because when you go through, as far as the object distance, there's things you're going to do differently. Okay, you're not going to like hit all the random selections. You're not going to like randomly rotate it on its y-axis. And the distance between objects is going to be the exact distance of this fence. All right. I'm not going to get too into it right now. Just keep that in mind that there are differences as far as which options you select. Okay, when you set up that script. All right. At some point, we're going to get into doing fences and stuff like that, and I'll explain all of it. I'll explain it all to you later on, you know, when we get that far. Okay. Alrighty. But like I said, I just wanted to kind of get that out there as far as what I did to get the trees down and everything that I did to get what what you're seeing here. So I basically wanted to bring you up to speed because I feel bad. I feel bad that you guys weren't included when I was having all this fun and you just weren't here with me. Okay. But let me see. I'll start thinking about what I want to do for the next video. There's a lot of fleshing out that still needs to happen. And I just don't know if I want to create an entire video about you guys watching me just put down objects. I mean, maybe you'll learn something. Like, I'll do something a little bit differently than you would have done it. And maybe we'll all learn something, maybe not. And who knows, if it's a video you're not interested, you could always just skip to the next one. We'll see. I have not yet made up my mind what I want to do about that. But anyhow, I'm going to cut this one short. And with that being said, I am Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.